So we got celery root, a rutabaga, and a regular potato. Celery root, of course, has those roots on them, and it's hard to find celery root. You can't always find it. Obviously, in a farmer's market, you can get a celery root, or a finer produce supplier will get you celery root. One thing you should be able to find is, of course, rutabaga and potato. So you could do this gratin dish with just rutabaga and potato, but the celery root adds another little other texture and flavor to it as well, some pungency. So what basically what we want to do is we cut the ends off all of them. On celery root, you're going to cut the end off there, and make sure you wash them really good. And of course, then you're going to start peeling. And the outside skin on the celery root is pretty tough. And then also with the rutabaga, just like a turnip, rutabaga is actually a little more dense than a turnip is. So all of these you're going to peel first, and then I'm going to show you how to cut them. So next we're going to cut these. Now you could use a mandolin, but if you don't have a mandolin, what you're going to do is you're going to do by hand, and you're going to go basically 1/8 of an inch on your slices. We learned about doing this slicing in our first part of our Home Chef series with our cooking techniques, of course the Prep Cook one. So you're going to be doing that with your potatoes. Basically they're about 1/8 of an inch thick, right? Same with your rutabaga. So the rutabagas we're going to go in half circles, and we're going to go down and just try to get as to 1/8 of an inch like you can, as best you can. You don't want one too big and too small, because these are all going to bake in a gratin, so we have to be as much aware to get them nice, the same thickness as possible. Next one, your hardest one, is your celery root. That's a little denser, and of course we're going to do half moon, half circle shapes on that, and you're going to go down and see how I have my fingers curled? I'm using my knife right there as I'm cutting down. And of course, we in the Prep Cook section, we talked about sharpening your knife if you have to. So it's very important with your knife skills here to get your nice thin cuts as best you can on your celery root, your potato, and also your rutabaga. All right. Okay, so we got it all sliced. And if you have little end pieces like this, don't worry about those. We are going to put some oil on the bottom of a casserole dish. So brush some oil, vegetable oil or olive oil is fine. You can also use butter too. And we can put butter on the bottom of that dish, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to start layering. So we're going to layer like 2 pieces of our rutabaga, 2 pieces of our celery root, and then 2 pieces of our potato. And you're going to continue to do this layering as you're going along, and want to try to what we call shingling those nice layers as you're going along. You can even get 2 layers of this as we're going. So celery root, potato, rutabaga, celery root, potato, rutabaga, and you can continue as you go along, and just all around whatever dish you have, round dish, square dish, to use up your layering, okay? Like shingling is what we're doing, all right? So you can see how we did our layering. We're going to finish on the top. I'm going to do a little single. I'm going to do potato, celery root, and potato, celery root. The last slices that I have, maximize and use as much as you can. You might not be able to use every last slice, but you get as much as you can in there and layer it, and make it look nice, because it's going to bake, and so you really want that texture in the layering to be there. You just don't want it to look too messy, and you can tuck some extra slices underneath to fill in if you have to, but we're just about there, filling in our last slices. If you have a really thick slice, don't put it in. Just, leave it out, because actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten these out some. There we go. We're going to go like that and layer those. There we go. And right on top of there. Now what's going to happen is we're going to start seasoning this, and then we're going to make I have a little area right there, a little hole there, so what I'm going to do is fill that in. There we go. We're going to season a little bit, and then we're going to make our sauce. Pepper and salt. Okay. You can also put garlic powder on here if you wanted to as well. Keeping it simple. There we go. Alright, so we have about 2 cups of milk here. You can use any kind of milk. You could use regular milk, you could use skim milk, you could use almond milk, oat milk, you name it. Some kind of milk. So we have 2 cups of milk here. We're going to make a slurry. Remember that was in our making our sauce making in for the saucier part of our in our cooking steps to be a home chef, and we're going to add a half a cup of water to that flour. So we're going to make a slurry by mixing, turn down this heat a little bit, half a cup of water and then a 1/4 cup of flour, and you're going to mix that until it's nice and smooth and there's no lumps in that slurry. Just mix that around and get all the lumps out. You can do it with a fork or a whisk. We're going to wait till our milk comes almost up to like a light simmer. You don't want to do a rolling boil before we add our slurry into our mixture. You want to make sure all your flour is all incorporated into that water to make your slurry. Okay, so we've got a little bit of simmering here with some bubbles happening. You don't want a rolling boil. We're going to add our slurry into our liquid mixture. Make sure all the lumps are out of your flour and your water mixture so that will not lump up. And we're gonna start keeping that steady, lower, almost to simmer temperature going, and we're going to incorporate that slurry, and we're going to turn up our heat just a little bit. What we want is the slurry to start cooking out and thickening up our sauce. That's what we're going to do. And this is going to take about probably 5 to 8 minutes for we want our flour to cook out in the milk, so you don't want to turn it off right away. You want this flour, of course we talked about when making sauces, to get that flour incorporated, or the gelatinization is what we call the thickening of the liquid, to happen first. So let that flour cook out. Alright, this has been about 7-8 minutes. We can see our sauce is thickened. Okay, we're going to turn it down really on low. We're going to whisk it a little bit more. See if we got any more lumps in there. Whisk that all around. It's looking great. Turn down my heat. And now I'm going to put in a dash of nutmeg. 2 dashes of nutmeg, that's good. And we're going to put in basically an 1/8 of a teaspoon of garlic powder, or granulated garlic. 1/8 of a teaspoon of granulated garlic or garlic powder. We're going to mix that around. Then what we're going to do is we're going to season it with some salt and pepper. Now you're going to do salt and pepper to taste. You want to have some of that salt to round it out, but you don't want it to be too salty, because we're going to be adding Parmesan cheese to this gratin. So at this point, you're going to taste and see where you're at. You want to get a little of the salt, but you want to be overpowering. Just a little hint. It's going to be really bland to you, but that's fine. You're going to get a little hint of your nutmeg, and the main thing that's going to come out here is going to be the Parmesan cheese, and of course the flavors from the potato and also your celery root and rutabaga. Once we get this going, we're all ready to go. Now comes our fun part. We're going to ladle on our sauce. Now you want sauce to cover this, but you don't need it to. You don't want it swimming in the sauce. You want the sauce to kind of like go into the sides and fall down in between the sides of the vegetables. But we don't want it swimming in sauce. You can put some on your corner, your edges, just like that. Okay, and then that way it's going to seep into the sides. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to brush this. This works out perfect. This is like the amount of liquid. I'm going to brush it a little bit so I get some of the border of the vegetables at the same time, because you really want to see some of that layering of the root vegetables, since you did such a good job layering them and also shingling them, what we call shingling. So we're just putting that sauce in there in the crevices of it, right? And if you don't use all the sauce, it's okay. All right. And we're using a brush just to brush that through. I'm good with the sauce. just enough to cover it. That's all you want. You just want enough to cover it because it's going to thicken up as it bakes. Meanwhile, we have our oven preheated to 350. You can even go up to 375 for this. And every oven's going to be different. If you have convection oven, 350 is fine. And then what you're going to do is do a little tapping there to get that sauce down. Now comes the fun part. Now's the Parmesan. So the Parmesan is going to go all around. You don't want it, you want enough to just, a nice dusting, but you don't want it to be like a caking. So dusting, but not overly caked in our adding of our Parmesan cheese. Press that down a little bit. There we go. Okay, that looks really good. So we are fine with that. If you want to put a little bit of pepper on top, you can. You don't really need any more salt because I have our Parmesan cheese. We're ready to go into the oven. Okay, so that's been about 45 minutes. So you want to make sure that it's nice and golden brown on the top. And what you want to do is test it to see that it's fork tender or knife tender. You're going to put a knife. If it goes through easily, then you're ready to go. So that's really good. The color's great. And just let that cool down just a little bit before you serve it.